Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. Today we are making this marking knife and I am in love with this thing. It is actually a collaboration between me and Uri Tuchman. He made the brass piece on this and did some amazing carving on this. Just absolutely gorgeous. If you want to see how he did that, I'll leave a link to his video down below. But today we're going to be working on the wooden half of this and how they go together. Also, if you want to win this, there will be information on how to do that down below. So enough talking, let's actually dive in and build this thing. For this knife, much like the square, the wood piece is going to be made out of live oak. And I got this scrap from Talley when I was out there. And it has been stabilized, so it is a very sturdy piece and works really well for this. I just want to smooth it all out and get good reference surfaces that I can mark everything else off of. And in this case, it's just planing it down, and you get to see the quality of this live oak comes through, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. A little bit of spalting in there, it's a yellow portion, and I like how it came out as the epoxy cures, or I guess it's resin, not an epoxy. So I want to cut out the shape of this, and I want it to be kind of an odd wedge shape and sloping back rather than being perfectly square. So it kind of ties in with the brass done below, but is a little bit different. We're going to cut it to length, and oops, I pulled the saw back a little too far. Do that occasionally, and oh well, as long as you don't push forward on it too hard, it won't bend the plate. But if you do, then it will bend the plate, and I've done that before as well. So now we're going to slice into this and make the wedge shape, and it's just cutting down along those lines, making the shape you want. And there really is no right or wrong, and I kind of wanted to experiment and play with something a little bit different, and that was where this came together. It was a very different thing that I've not seen before, and I kind of like the look, and that's how you come up with your own style, is just the experimentation and the playing around with it. So after slicing these down, we can start to do the shaping work on this. And this brings me to shaping small pieces. They're hard to do, and it's often difficult to find a way to hold them. And there's a few tricks of the trade, but one of them is save those wedges that you just cut off, because you can use those to hold this in a regular jaw vise. Or sometimes even using a wooden screw clamp. And the nice thing with wooden screw clamp is you can clamp that to something else and use it as a jaw vise that then goes on top of your bench. Now that I have the wedge shape, I want to taper down the two sides, because I want it to be about 3/8 square at the bottom, and at the top it is about 3/4 by 1.1 or so. And we can pare those down by just putting it at an angle in the vise, and it holds pretty well at this size. The problem comes when I want to take down these corners and turn them octagonally. Most of the time I just flip the plane over and I run it by hand. And it looks dangerous, but as long as you're careful, it's okay. But the problem with this is the hard oak that has been stabilized is so hard that it would take a long time to do it by hand that way. So I found this way, if I save those wedges, flip it over, the wedge can hold it in place in the jaw vise, and then I can work at it, pinching it corner to corner. And for the first two, that works out really well, as it pinches it corner to corner. And then once I get two corners done on opposing sides, it works even better, as now you have flat sides that the vise can clamp onto. So just being very careful and taking your time setting it up allows you to take these down pretty quickly. Now we have an octagonal shape-ish. It's octagonal at the bottom, as all 8 sides are about the same, but then at the top it is much larger. It's rectangular, octagonal. I don't know what that is. That would be an interesting shape to figure out. This really took about 20-30 minutes. It was not a really intensive cut, but it did take its time. On the top, I wanted to chamfer all the edges, and chamfering those little pieces with a plane is almost impossible. But if you flip over a rasp or a file, it actually becomes real easy then to slide the work across the file, and it cleans up pretty nicely. The only problem with it is you're going to fill up the teeth in the file really quickly, and so having a file card on hand makes it very easy to clean those out, or even just a wire brush cleans them out pretty quickly. So once we get all those chamfers on there, we can start actually attaching this to it. Now the attachment that Uri left me was, I believe it was 1/4 inch-ish by a little over 1/4 inch deep. It's not huge, but there isn't going to be much force on this at all, so it doesn't need to have a really strong force. I'm just creating a tenon to fit into that. I drew a circle on the top that is about the size it needs to be, and I'm basically paring in from the side and then chopping down. paring in and chopping down and paring in and chopping down, and doing it little by little. I don't want to take off much at all, because if I take off too much, I'm going to splinter off some big piece, and this is just going to be a mess. So I'm just being very careful, doing it very little by very little. Then once I get it close to the size, I'm actually going to take it over to a dowel plate here and drive those in. And I'll drive this down until I get close to a dowel hole that fits in. It leaves a little bit of mushrooming at the top, and you just come in with a chisel and clean it out, and then take it onto the next size and pound it down. Then clean off that mushroom and go back and forth until you get one that fits. And the dowel plate makes really quick work of this if there is a dowel that fits the hole you're looking for. And this one actually fit just about perfect. It was a little bit looser than I expected, but with the epoxy that will work fine. Next thing I need to do is actually put a bit of a cone on the top of this, because the mortise that this will be fitting into is drilled with a drill bit, and so it has a 60-degree bit, 60-degree taper on the inside where the nose of the drill bit cut in. Then we can see how it fits. I just want to clean up the rim where it comes in contact with the brass, so right where it comes in contact, it's not octagonal but rounded, just so that it fits nicely. Then we're going to use a bit of strong 5-minute epoxy, whip that up, and put it into the hole. And I want to make sure I don't put too much into the hole, otherwise it will clog, but I want to make sure that there's enough to fill every gap. So I'm going to be putting a bit in there, and then I got a small stick of wood to put down in there, make sure it contacts all surfaces. And then we can put the pieces together and clamp them down. There was a bit of a compression at the bottom. You can see a little bit squeezing out. I just had to come back with a rag before actually letting it sit and clean it out. Using a light clamp here, holding it in place for the 5-minute epoxy to do its thing. And there it is. Yeah, I was really happy with how the shape came out on this. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really like it. And this is Wood By Wright, so we're going to do boiled linseed oil and paste wax. I have several videos on this where it's applying the boiled linseed oil, letting it soak in, doing it 2 or 3 times every 15 minutes. And then after it has dried for a little while, then I rub it down with paste wax and polish it out. And it is ready to go. And you hold it much like you would hold a pencil, so you're not going to be holding the handle as much. It's more or less holding the end. But if you've ever held a short pencil, it's nice to have that weight on the back. It balances it nicely. One side of this has a bevel and one side has a line, so you can run along your straight edge. And if you want to see the video on making this square, we also have a video on that. So this was a really fun project. I love how this came out, and Uri's his carving on the knife is absolutely gorgeous. And if you want to see how to do that, definitely take a look at his video. He did a phenomenal job on that. You can see how this all ties together, kind of matching the taper down below, but rather than just being square like it is below, it has a angle to it. I'm really, really happy. So there you have it. I am really happy with how this thing came out. Absolutely gorgeous. His carving and shaping work on the brass is phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to seeing his video on that. And if you want to see that, I'll leave a link to that down below as well in the cards. And if you want to win this, we will be having a little giveaway on this, and there's information on how you can win that down below. So I hope you like this, and if you did, please hit like, comment, subscribe. That really does help out the channel, and I think that's about it for now. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Good job. To be completely honest with you, a marking knife is cutting-edge technology.